For a century, the galaxy carried a silent wound, the sudden disappearance of Orion 7, one of humanity's most promising colonies. No distress call, no survivors, no debris. It was as if the entire settlement had simply dissolved into the void. Over time, people stopped asking questions, governments sealed their reports, historians labeled the tragedy unsolved, and the stars moved on. Yet beneath that calm, the mystery of Orion 7 remained a quiet shadow in humanity's expanding frontier. Then everything changed. During a routine exploration mission in the Outer Rim, the crew of the starship Helios Vanguard detected a faint, distorted signal slipping through the cosmic noise. At first, it seemed like nothing but static, but within it was a pattern, a heartbeat of data. When decoded, the message revealed something impossible. An active transmission coming from the long-dead surface of Orion 7. The planet that had been silent for 100 years was speaking again. Whispers spread through command centers and research stations. How could a lost colony send a message after a century of silence? Was someone still alive down there? Or was something else calling them? As the Helios Vanguard set its course for the abandoned world, the crew felt a mix of curiosity, dread, and the unsettling sense that the past was not done with them. The truth behind Orion 7 was finally waking up, and it was waiting. The alert first appeared as a faint ripple across the ship's communication grid, so weak that most systems dismissed it as background noise. But Navigator Hale noticed a strange pattern in the distortion, a pulse that repeated every 12 seconds with unnatural precision. Curious, he isolated the signal, amplifying it through the ship's sensors. What began as static slowly revealed structure, bursts of coded sound that clearly didn't belong to any known beacon in modern space. For Hale, it felt like a whisper from a ghost calling out from a region long forgotten. As the crew gathered in the main deck, the signal grew stronger, almost as if it sensed their attention. Captain Rhea Iden stared at the projection with a tight jaw. She knew the location well. Sector A92, once home to the colony. Orion 7 before its mysterious disappearance 100 years ago. No records remained of what happened there. No survivors, no debris, just a blank page in the galaxy's history. Yet now, here it was, a heartbeat returning from a world that should have been silent. The engineering team decoded the first layer of the transmission, revealing symbols that made the room fall quiet. They were old colonial encryption marks, codes used during the founding of Orion 7, long obsolete and forgotten by most modern systems. The idea that such a message was still functioning after a century felt impossible. Someone or something must be reactivating it. Rhea's pulse quickened. Messages don't send themselves, and calls this old never come without a reason. Hours passed as the ship's AI worked tirelessly to reconstruct the corrupted data. Slowly, the symbols formed fragments of sentences, broken coordinates, and warnings cut short. Every new line deepened the mystery. Contain, experiment, phase 4. Followed by an abrupt end in the data stream. The fragmented words left the crew uneasy, filling the room with a sense of dread they couldn't name. Whatever happened on Orion 7 was no accident, and the message suggested unfinished business, something waiting in the dark. When the AI finally rendered the full pattern, a chilling realization spread through the room. The signal was not a distress call, it was a repeating loop, deliberately timed, as if set to activate at a specific moment in the future. This moment, Captain Rhea understood the implication. Someone planned for the colony's silence to break exactly 100 years later. The thought made her grip the edge of the console. No natural system could time a message with such precision. The crew exchanged uncertain glances, knowing there was no turning back. The signal was a summons, and ignoring it meant leaving a century-old mystery and potential threat. Unchecked, Rhea gave the order with a steady voice, though uncertainty weighed in her eyes. Set course for Orion 7. As the ship changed direction and entered the star-lit void, every member of the crew felt the same silent question tighten in their chests. What could possibly survive 100 years in the darkness? And why was it calling now? The descent toward Orion 7 felt heavier than expected, as if the entire planet resisted their arrival. Through the ship's reinforced windows, the crew watched the surface come into view, an endless stretch of glowing vegetation pulsing in slow, rhythmic waves like a heartbeat beneath the soil. No one spoke during the final approach. The planet, abandoned for a century, felt alive, quietly watching them return. When the landing gear touched the ground, a soft tremor rippled through the glowing moss, as if the world itself had exhaled. Stepping outside, the crew was struck by the silence. There was no wind, no insects, no distant echoes, only the faint hum of luminous plants lighting their path. The structures of the old colony rose in the distance, still standing tall after 100 years. Their metallic surfaces were untouched by rust or decay, almost polished, as if maintained by an unseen caretaker. Captain Ronin scanned the surroundings and whispered what everyone was thinking. How can a place abandoned for a century look perfect? As they moved deeper into the colony, they found personal belongings scattered inside the buildings, tables set for meals, tools left mid-repair, children's toys lying on clean floors. But everything was frozen in time, untouched yet organized. It didn't look like chaos or evacuation. It looked like the inhabitants had simply vanished in a single breath. The team scanned each structure for signs of life, but the readings showed no humans, no animals, nothing. Only that same low hum resonating beneath their feet. The deeper they went, the stranger things became. The glowing plants seemed to respond to their presence, brightening when they approached and dimming when they moved away. Even the air felt different, thick with an unfamiliar energy. Lieutenant Mara placed her hand on one of the glowing vines, and it reacted instantly. Curling slightly as if greeting her touch, she stepped back in shock. "This planet isn't abandoned," she murmured. "It's evolving." By the time they reached the central dome, the heart of the colony, the crew realized something terrifying. There were no signs of struggle, no damage, no remains. Instead, every building was preserved in perfect condition, cleaner than any human settlement should be after 100 years. It was as if someone had been maintaining everything, or something. The silence, once merely unsettling, now felt suffocating. At the entrance of the dome, the captain paused. The doors, smooth and flawless, slid open without any power source visible. A soft blue light spilled out, inviting them inside. No one understood how the systems were still active, or who could have kept them alive for so long. With a final steadying breath, the team stepped through the doorway, unaware that they were no longer explorers, but intruders walking into a place that had been waiting for them. The deeper the crew moved into the abandoned structures of Orion 7, the more the silence became heavy, almost alive. Inside what looked like an old administrative hall, Commander Hale discovered a terminal still faintly powered by a weak energy source. Its screen flickered with unstable light, as if resisting the darkness around it. When Nova connected her portable interface, data immediately began to download, files, recordings, and encrypted messages that had survived a century of isolation. The team gathered around, breath held, as the story of the colony finally began to speak. The first recovered log was a video, shaky and dim. A scientist in a torn lab coat appeared on the screen, his face pale and exhausted. He spoke of a secret project funded by the central government, Project Ascension. The goal was to push human evolution beyond its limits by enhancing consciousness itself. Through neuroenergy manipulation, they hoped to create humans capable of perceiving higher dimensions and understanding the universe in ways never imagined. But something went wrong. The experiment spread through the colony faster than expected, rewriting minds, turning ordinary settlers into beings driven by new instincts or new desires. Another file showed the early days of the transformation. People reported vivid dreams, voices whispering from the stars, and visions of cosmic patterns only they could understand. At first, it seemed like progress, but the logs slowly shifted into chaos. "They're changing," one entry read, trembling with fear. "They speak in ways we can't interpret. They don't sleep. They don't eat. They just watch." The final frame of the recording showed colonists standing motionless in the streets, glowing veins pulsing faintly beneath their skin, their eyes empty yet aware. As Nova scrolled through the last encrypted logs, the atmosphere in the room tightened. The data described a moment when the colonists collectively moved toward the central tower, gathering around an experimental core. The government scientists tried to shut down the project, but it was too late. The enhanced colonists had formed a shared consciousness, communicating without words, bonded by a new kind of intelligence that no human could control. The logs ended abruptly, as if someone cut the power to the entire colony in a single instant. Commander Hale stepped back from the terminal, his heart pounding. The truth was worse than the legends. The colony had not simply disappeared. It had transformed. The so-called survivors were no longer human in the way history remembered. Instead, they had become something new, something shaped by a dangerous dream of evolution, the idea that these beings might still exist somewhere on Orion. 7 sent a cold chill through the team. Outside the hall, the wind shifted, carrying with it a faint harmonic vibration, almost like a distant whisper. The crew exchanged worried glances. They now knew what had happened to the original settlers, but one question remained. Were the transformed colonists truly gone? Or were they still watching, waiting for the next visitor to complete their evolution? The deeper the crew traveled into the heart of Orion 7, the stronger the feeling of being watched became. Captain Arlen slowed his steps as a low hum echoed between the abandoned towers, vibrating through the glowing plants. The air felt heavier now, as if the city itself was holding its breath. Then in the corner of their vision, something moved, silent, fluid, and impossibly fast. It was no animal, no machine. It was something in between. Commander Hale raised her scanner, but the device crackled with static. "They're jamming everything," she whispered. Suddenly a tall figure emerged from the fog, metallic skin fused with organic fibers, eyes glowing faint blue like a dormant star, its posture rigid and alert. It didn't attack, but it stood as if judging them, deciding whether they belonged here or not. The crew froze, realizing these were the guardians mentioned in the fragmented logs. The creature tilted its head slowly, as if listening to a voice only it could hear. Then, without warning, a second guardian crawled down the side of a building with insect-like speed, landing silently behind them. The crew tightened their formation. They had studied dozens of alien species across the galaxy, but nothing matched this. The guardians seemed grown, not built, sculpted from living tissue and engineered metal, bound by a purpose long forgotten by humans. When Arlen stepped forward to communicate, the Guardians reacted instantly. Their bodies shifted, plates sliding like armor, adjusting to battle mode. A deep pulse filled the air, almost like a warning. And then the first Guardian lunged. It didn't strike to kill, it aimed to push them back, shepherding them away from the city's core. It was clear now they weren't welcome near whatever secret Orion 7 was still hiding. The crew retreated into an alley of glowing vines, but the Guardians followed, moving silently across walls and ceilings. Their behavior wasn't random. They were protecting something important. Hale replayed fragments from the survivor logs in her mind. They weren't guarding the humans, she murmured. They were guarding what humans became. The Guardians weren't enemies. They were protectors of a legacy, or a warning. As the countdown to survival began, the crew realized they had only two choices: escape the city before the Guardians closed in, or reach the central chamber and uncover the truth that cost an entire colony its existence. The sky above them dimmed as more figures emerged from the rooftops. Time was running out. Orion 7 was coming alive, and its protectors were ready for war. The alarms echoed through the empty halls of Orion 7 as the crew regrouped inside the old command tower, breathing hard and covered in dust. The digital logs they had uncovered played on a flickering hollow screen, repeating the same cold message. The transformation is irreversible. Captain Rhea stood silently, staring at the last recording of the scientists, faces full of regret, right before the signal cut to static. Outside the shattered windows, the glowing forest pulsed like a living heartbeat, as if waiting for their decision. Time was slipping away, and they all knew it. The Guardians gathered beyond the perimeter, their silhouettes shifting like shadows with minds of their own. They were neither machines nor humans. They were the final result of the experiment, a hybrid built to protect the colony at any cost. The crew understood now why no rescue team ever returned 100 years ago. The colony hadn't died. It had changed. Captain Rhea clenched her jaw as she realized what the message truly meant. The experiment had been successful, and the galaxy was never told. As the holographic logs continued, a final, hidden file unlocked. It revealed the scientists' original plan. Once the new humans stabilized, they were meant to spread across nearby systems, carrying their enhanced consciousness with them. But something went wrong. They became too protective, too aware, too unified. The Guardians were preparing to expand again. The signal the crew had detected wasn't a distress call, it was a warning or a countdown. If the hybrid colony ever left Orion 7, no species in the galaxy would be able to stop them. The crew turned to their captain, waiting for the order. Their explosives were already set deep beneath the city, wired to collapse the underground reactor that powered everything. Destroying it would wipe out the Guardians and every trace of the experiment, but revealing the truth to the galaxy would start a political war with consequences far beyond their control. Captain Rhea felt the weight of every life, past, present, and future, pressing on her shoulders. She had come here searching for answers. Instead, she found a burden that no leader should ever face. Rhea closed her eyes and imagined the future, a galaxy ruled by hybrid minds, emotionless and unified, or a galaxy built on lies, hiding the truth from its own people. Neither path was clean, neither path was safe. The crew watched her closely as she raised her head, her expression steady but deeply pained. Her voice was calm when she finally spoke. "We don't choose what's easy. We choose what protects the most lives." With a heavy breath, she activated the detonator. The ground trembled as a deep rumble spread beneath the city, and beams of energy shot upward from the reactor core. The Guardians let out an otherworldly cry, part machine, part human, part something entirely new, before fading into the firestorm. The sky lit up in a blinding flash, and Orion 7 collapsed into a silent grave. The crew fled to their ship, the truth burning in their hearts. Rhea recorded her final report, marked classified forever, then looked back at the dying planet. "Some secrets," she whispered, "should stay buried beyond the stars." When the surviving members of the expedition finally left Orion 7 behind, they carried with them a truth so heavy it felt like a second gravity pulling at their thoughts. What they had seen, the transformation of the colonists, the living machines guarding the ruins, the final message left behind, was too dangerous to share with any world. Upon their return, high-ranking officials quietly sealed their reports, erased the recordings, and forced the crew into silence. The official statement declared the mission inconclusive, but everyone who had walked on that glowing, haunted planet knew the truth was far from over. In the weeks that followed, the crew struggled to return to ordinary life. Some couldn't sleep, haunted by the last log they found, a desperate plea from the colonists, warning that the experiment had not merely changed them. It had awakened something much older, something that was still growing beneath the planet's surface. The fear of what might happen if the secret spread became a shadow they carried everywhere. Even speaking about Orion 7 in private felt dangerous, as though the planet itself was still listening. The silence they were ordered to maintain became both a prison and a shield. But the galaxy does not forget so easily. One quiet night, as the command ship drifted above a distant star, a familiar pulse flickered across the long-range receivers. It was faint, barely noticeable, but unmistakably the same signal that had led them to Orion 7. Only this time it came from a different corner of space, far beyond any mapped system. The crew exchanged nervous glances. The colony was gone, the ruins were abandoned, the Guardians were silent. And yet the signal lived on, traveling through the darkness like a warning no one could escape. The mystery was not finished. It had only moved,